no matter where you are, Silicon Valley, Dubai, Manila, all entrepreneurs want the same four things. They want to grow the business, they want to make it rain, and you want your time back. But here's the dirty secret of entrepreneurship. You can have all three, but not at the same time.
There is freedom. There is a sense of freedom in working 80 to 100 hours a week and doing what you love.
People say, I want to get into entrepreneurship because of the freedom. Like, I want to be my own boss. I want to build a business that runs without me. But there's a warning label. Freedom without structure is just chaos.
Entrepreneurs are a different breed, but most people are inherently lazy. They want the quick buck. They want the pill to magically make them lose the 50 pounds without expending energy or any of that stuff. They'll want the shortcut. And then it becomes a different question. It's like, okay, well, you clearly don't want to become an entrepreneur. You want the idea of being an entrepreneur so that you could basically relish in the fruits of that labor without actually having to do the work. So be real with yourself and have a self-discovery lesson about what that entails, because all great things in life come with a sacrifice.
So before we jump into today's episode, I just have to pause and appreciate something really quick. So if you're watching this on video, you already know my guy Nikos pulled up today with a fade that's so clean that I actually thought it was AI generated.
Thank you.
It's sharp enough to, I think it's sharp enough, Nikos, to slice through inflation.
Ooh, I like that. Huh? Look at that. Look at that.
And it's looking really tight. So who lined you up with this?
You know,
can I book them for my next date night?
Her name is Sarah, and she is at the San Bruno Town Center in San Bruno Supercuts. Bam.
Nice.
You know, when you find it's not really the place, it's the person, right?
Yeah,
it always takes a while when you're in a new space. And so I have my Bay Area person do the fade, slicing through inflation, slicing through tax cuts, all of it. Yeah, she's also my financial advisor.
Wow. She brings in a whole lot of talent to the game.
For sure.
Nice.
Appreciate that though. Yeah.
So let's start with a simple but really powerful question. So as a matter of fact, Nikos, I'm going to ask you.
Sure.
You've been an entrepreneur for how many years now?
I mean, on and off, but I'd say combined about 15.
15 years. 15. Okay. 15 years. A decade and a half. So What do you want as an entrepreneur?
What do I want?
Yeah. What do you want? Like,
me personally, or do I want something for my business?
No, for you. Like, what do you want? Why did you sign up for this? Like, the most demanding, most challenging journey that exists out there. It's really hard to be an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, you know it's really tough. Not everyone has what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Sure.
So you've taken this path. You've been doing it for a decade and a half. What do you want?
Well, philosophically speaking, I want to make a change, to make an impact. And
beautiful.
I also want freedom and growth as an individual, which is different than what I want for the business. For the business, it's something different. So then you get into the success metrics, right? So for business, it's obviously revenues. And then I say
which is growth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, you know, to make an impact, you need to drive, you know, some kind of operational efficiency, but really it's working as a unit and to do something meaningful in the world.
Hold up. Efficiency. What does that mean? Like, what does that even mean?
Why do you need
doing
efficiency? More with less? And the reason why you want to do more with less is to either free up time, so freedom, or something that leads to more growth, which is really what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
Which is scale.
Scale, exactly. Like, you know, that's what entrepreneurs want. They want growth. They want scale. You nailed growth. You said revenue. That's growth. You said freedom. Absolutely. I mean, every entrepreneur that I know, when I ask them, well, why are you on this path? Ultimately, there's going to be, you know, you hear things like impact, like you said, but there's always going to be an element of, you know, I want to be my own boss. Like, I want freedom. I want to be able to work when I want and where I want, right? And let's go back to efficiency. You spoke about efficiency. What's the purpose of efficiency? What does efficiency in the business actually bring you?
Efficiency in the business
Yeah.
gets you scale, more revenues,
Yeah.
freedom of time.
Absolutely. And I think all of that really is only possible when you make profit.
100%.
Right? Because you're not really free if you've got a business that's not making profit. So
100%.
the growth, impact definitely, right? That's the North Star. Growth, in addition to impact, growth, profit, freedom. And I think the answer to this, no matter where you are, Silicon Valley, Dubai, Manila, all entrepreneurs want the same four things. They want to grow the business, they want to make it rain, and you want your time back, right? You want to be able to sip that espresso, hopefully somewhere in Tuscany, while the company's just running itself, right? But here's the dirty secret of entrepreneurship. You can have all three, but not at the same time.
Why not?
Because you've got to prioritize, right? You have to start with one, and then you kind of have to earn the other two. You can't start a business and say, I want freedom. Like, in the beginning, you have anything but freedom, right? If anything, it takes away all your freedom. And you can't, and in terms of growth and profit, yeah, you can basically have both, but I think there's a lot more leverage when you focus on one, which then
freedom is a funny one. Let me just interrupt you for a second, because I had some time to think about this while I was reading the Elon Musk biography. Because you made me reread it, by the way.
What do you think so far?
Really, really amazing. It really amazing. So many lessons, and I'm just like halfway through it because I was multitasking and reading another book at the same time. But
are you reading or are you listening to it? Are you listening?
I'm reading.
You're reading.
I like books. Yeah, okay. I like the tangibility factor of books. But the irony was, as I was sitting on the beach reading about perhaps like the most astute workaholic of our time, I had to let go. It took me a little bit. So it took me 3 days into the vacay to realize that I needed to really just let things go. Otherwise, I was completely like plugged in. I could not turn off the engine. The mind was going. So I had to almost like rejigger how I felt about it. And I said, you know what? This is exactly why I decided to be an entrepreneur, is so that I could give myself the freedom to do things like this, no matter how busy I am. There will always be so many things to do. The list keeps piling on. And at some point, it's like, wait a second, I am making this ish up. Every single thing that I have to do, it can wait. I have people that are running things for me now. It can wait. I don't need to be involved in so many different things. But freedom is a switch. And freedom could essentially be freedom in the work that you're doing. You love it so much that I'm sure Michelangelo felt that he was free. But, when he was working on the Sistine Chapel 100 hours a week without eating or sleeping, I'm sure that was a sense of freedom too, right? So I guess that becomes a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
So just wanted to nail that point about freedom, because it's like, what is freedom to you?
Yeah, without a doubt. But would you say you would have had that level of maturity and realization very early in your journey, like year one, for example?
No, definitely not.
I mean, if an entrepreneur is listening to this and they're in year one of their journey, like it's really hard to wrap your mind around, flipping that switch on freedom. It's so true. I completely agree with you, especially since, entrepreneurs are high achievers, right? They want to achieve. That's the strength that an entrepreneur carries with them.
Yep.
And when you're, laying on the beach, not working on the business, there's that sense of discomfort. And sure. I think we start really getting very comfortable with that discomfort after a few years. Like once you've gone through the journey and you really understand what it's all about, that, it's not a sprint. It's an endurance game.
Totally.
when you're an entrepreneur, you're playing the long game. It's an endurance sport.
For sure.
Going back, so you don't get to have all three all at once. You have to pick one. So which one did you pick in the beginning? Like, take us back to year one. What were you optimizing for?
Early in my career or
Yeah.
the later startups?
Let's start with early in your career.
Early in my career, it was all about something similar to revenue, but it was traction, right?
Mm.
Adoption, product market fit. When we did digital ad tech, it was how many customers can we light up on this thing?
Yeah.
And we were scaling to some combination of resonance in market to get funding, traction for deployment, and getting money in the bank. And then after all was said and done, it wasn't even about the scaling. It was just about the revenue. Money talks, because you're flipping a bunch of switches when you're an entrepreneur, right? Even back then, you had like some pretty decent analytics. This was 2007 to 2010, and the digital advertising business, especially when it came to cross-platform transformation, you were dealing with codecs and different containers for viewing a lot of different creative technologies across different platforms. And what we realized was we don't need 100 clients. We may not even need 20 clients. We just need one that'll pay us 3 to 5 million a year. And that was the one that ended up buying us. And so we started to define success much differently, but then it just came down to this money talks thing. And we were chasing after KPI after KPI. It really just came down to, is the money flowing through our bank accounts, and is it giving us the capacity to scale early on?
So if you pick growth, you had a funding plan, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So your systems basically had to be really strong enough to basically be able to handle the speed that you would be able to unlock once you brought in capital.
That's right.
Yeah. I was working with a founder recently. Let's call her Naya. She completely bootstrapped. It was a SaaS business. Got it to $1 million ARR, and then decided to scale to 5 million in 12 months, right? Super aggressive. And basically she started hiring really fast. And the marketing budget just completely exploded. So the burn rate followed, the good old burn rate, right? And the team basically were completely misaligned, and they were still operating like a lean startup. And so while revenue grew, margins completely died. And by the end of the year, she was out of business.
Wow.
And she was super tired, and she was just wondering like what went wrong. A big part of it is that she chased growth, but really didn't have a plan for, okay, well, how are we going to make this profitable? What's the profit game that we're playing? What's the, like you said, what's the efficiency game, right? Because you want to continue building lean, you want to validate product market fit, like you said, but you only spend when ROI is really clear.
Totally.
Right? I mean, yeah.
That seems textbook to me now. It sounds like they were chasing after the wrong KPI because they couldn't manage the burn rate appropriate to the scale and growth, when really they should have been. The driver for me in that one is FCF, right? You guys should have been chasing free cash flow as you're scaling. So that should have been, one of the levers that you were looking to pull. Is it actually bringing in new revenue? Is your cost per acquisition, with the increase of your marketing spend going up with that, with marketing efficiency, are you dialing in on that? So to me, efficiency, I know we kind of like put it off to the side, but that is a proportion of scale. That is definitely one of the things in scale, right?
One, absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt. And I mean, you can get to a point where you get so obsessed with margins that you kind of forget to plant the seeds for future growth as well, right? So when it comes to growth and profit, you have to have your hands on both levers. I mean, it can be one exclusively, but you're playing a more dangerous game, right? Because you can run out of cash, and in the environment we're in right now, for example, if funding dries up, then your burn rate's limited, and now you're heading for disaster. So when it comes to growth and profit, you want to be able to basically play both, right? And you can't play the profit game and not play the growth game, because you may be making a profit, but if you're not growing, your expenses are growing, right? It's the Red Queen effect. You have to
Yeah,
keep growing in order for you to be able to stay in the game. Growth is key. Um,
totally. But what's funny about that is that when you are profitable, that becomes up to you as the founder CEO, right? It's like, okay, do we really want to like put a crank on this? Do we go for our Series A, or do we just stay private for long enough to sustain? And what you told me just now is that there wasn't stakeholder alignment on what those KPIs should be, and this is where we often see things, fall apart, especially as foundational as the founding team. They're like, oh, I've kind of experienced this multiple times actually, where one founder is like, no, let's crank, let's get to as much scale and growth as possible, and then another founder is like, well, no, I kind of like just the recurring revenue that we're getting from this. Why don't we just like automate this and like let's go sit
Misalignment.
sit in a beach somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And so often that philosophical misalignment, for one wants to chase the moon and the
Yeah.
other person was like, this is steady, this is good, why ruin a good thing? Let's just maintain our current burn and then optimize to profit, but then we're not going to be the next unicorn, right?
Yeah. I love that example, or what you just shared, because I was actually in that situation in my first business where my partner was happy with the growth, but what was really important to him was profit. Like, he wanted to be able to take cash out of the business to be able to just do things, right? Just lifestyle, like lifestyle chips. Think of it as lifestyle chips. And I was in a different phase in my life wherein I wanted to grow, 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 grow. I saw an opportunity. And so there was this misalignment in terms of what we wanted at that moment or that phase of the business. And that can create a lot of friction. So I love that you brought that up. And I think that's such an important point and such an underrated point. It's something that every founder that has a partner, or founders, need to have that conversation. What do we want over the next 3 years, right? Because I mean, 1 year goes by really fast. 5 years, okay, a little, some people struggle seeing 5 years out. Their headlights don't go out that far. But I think, 3 is long enough, but not too long, to be able to get a sense of what you're going to want in the short to medium term. And had we gotten that alignment, I think we would have been able to scale the business even more. We took lifestyle chips because obviously it's a partnership. So if one, makes a withdrawal, the other one has to make a withdrawal to keep the equity intact, right? So
Yeah.
it got complicated really fast. So
Yeah,
alignment is
definitely.
super
When
key.
you're talking about founder distributions or owner distributions, they have to be fair, they have to be amended, and that has to be part of the operating agreement,
Yeah.
obviously. And so I could tell a similar story where I was the one in my current business, which Lyrical AI, which we founded as early as 2019, and this was a hybrid software and service business. And what was interesting about this business is that it's highly scalable, highly profitable, because we'd land these massive contracts with uh, different government institutions, three-letter agencies, big brands that want custom AI products and predictive modeling, and I'm like, hey, great, yeah, we're building data products all day long, and we'll sell it to you. It's very straightforward business. It's a dev agency. I have multiple outsource groups where I could buy services for X, sell them for Y. Profit margin's great, anywhere from 50 to 75%. Proprietary process. And then my partners were like, this is good. Let's take chips off the table for all of us. This is doing really, really well. And I was like, no, let's just reinvest all of this in the business and let's scale. It turned out that this hyper ambition almost would have crippled us. And this was coming from my end. I'm like, I'm looking back at the business now. I'm like, okay, modest. We'll do anywhere from 3.5 to 5 million ARR between three partners. That's really good. Guess what lifestyle chip stacking kind of gets you. Now we can invest in software. Now we're like, okay, great. Like what do we want to do next without having to do a series A, right? So So yeah, I was the one that was kind of like, huh, well, maybe now it ended up being a good decision, but only in hindsight. Because when you're like caught up in the fray of that scale and you're thinking of yourself, no, I want to be a unicorn. People just get
Yeah.
like tied up and caught up in the idea of entrepreneurship rather than no, slow and steady wins the race. Now we have more freedom than we ever did before.
Yeah. That moment though is both humbling and terrifying, right?
Yeah,
Because you have to be really clear on what you want in that
that's right.
moment. You have to have alignment.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
remember one of my businesses, I went from 3 to 30 in people in, it was in under 18 months. And it
Wow.
was just weird because it felt like, and this was very early in my journey. And so when I would look on paper, it was weird because it felt like we were winning, we were growing, like we were bringing in people, but it felt like we were losing control because while we were growing, it was exposing the cracks, right? It was exposing, and that's what scaling does is, it creates a lot of chaos, and at the same time it exposes the cracks, and it just revealed all the little things that were already broken, right? It's not that it wasn't broken, we
It
just weren't
amplifies
looking
them.
in the right, it amplifies it,
Yeah,
exactly. It's like that quote, right? Pressure doesn't build character, it reveals it. It's the
yeah,
same with scale.
love that.
So, out of these three, actually, let me ask you a question. Have you heard entrepreneurs basically say that, or people say, I want to get into entrepreneurship because, of the freedom? Like, I want to be my own boss.
Of course,
How often have you heard
absolutely,
that?
a lot. I've
Yeah.
heard that a lot, which is the biggest myth, at least when you're starting, right? Like we're going back to that same example because
Yeah.
we
I
know
want
that's a
to,
fallacy.
I want to build a business that runs without me, right? Awesome.
Yeah.
But there's a warning label. I think the warning label is freedom without structure is just chaos in
Yes.
disguise, right?
Right.
Like you,
Right.
you have to have the structure. And that's where the freedom, it's like in endurance sports, right? People always ask me like, you're constantly disciplined, structure. Like there's always, you're so rigid. I hear this all the time. And in the beginning, it kind of like grinded my gears. But then I realized very quickly that it was the rigidity, it was the structure that actually gave me the freedom.
Yeah. I love
You
that.
know, it gave me the freedom from all these other things that I didn't want to do, that I was doing because I didn't have a clear structure in place.
Yeah, I would say that's a huge piece of it. But the other side of it that I mentioned earlier to some degree, I don't think I articulated it well enough, is that there are varying degrees of freedom, and freedom to you may not mean freedom to me. And the diligence and the discipline, the rigor, so to speak, is definitely an element that unlocks that freedom of time. But then there's also having freedom in the thing that you love to do the most, which is what I feel like entrepreneurs should basically
Yeah.
focus on from the very beginning. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I know that I'm not going to be free, so to speak, because I'm going to be spending 80 hours a week on this business and building it. But are those 80 hours so meaningful to me that it's the love for the game, right? Like Kobe Bryant up at 4 a.m.
It's the
and
game. Yeah.
just
Just the
working
love of the game.
diligently, just love for the game. Do you love this game long enough to, like you said, run that endurance race that could take you up to a decade, if not more?
Yeah. And I love that example of Kobe. You know what? Every time his name comes up, I still haven't fully processed that he's no longer with us. Like
Same.
imagine how much he would have been able to inspire. I mean, he continues to inspire. There's no doubt about it, right? But I was really looking forward to what he was going to do next
Oh yeah.
because of just I mean, it's only now that I'm really getting to understand like the man. Like because I wasn't a Lakers fan for a long time. And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
wasn't a hater, but I wasn't
Yeah.
a lover either. I wasn't a fan. And
Hmm.
now I think I'm the biggest fan, Kobe fan, just because,
Totally.
just the level of, like you said, the love for the game. Like
Hmm.
it wasn't about anything but the love for the game. I read recently that, he has this coach, right? Or is it a coach? It was a trainer. I forget his name
Hmm.
now. Same guy trained Jordan. And he said
Yeah.
what made Kobe different is that when they travel, okay, when they're in an away game, they're playing, away, he would have his trainer take a basketball and dribble the ball in every like part of the court, because teams like home teams were known for like messing around with the wood. And so there were dead spots on the
Yeah.
court,
Yeah.
and they would push you. And obviously the home team would know where the dead spots were, and they
Throw
would
off your
push.
dribble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he knew this, and he would have his trainer basically go out and just dribble and
Yeah.
tell him where the dead spots were.
Brilliant.
Yeah, just love for the game,
Just
right?
brilliant.
Hey there. We're taking a quick break from the show to let you know that if you'd like to invite Dirain or Nikos to speak at your next event on topics ranging from emergence and the inner game to the future of AI, we've got you covered. Simply email us at info@emergencenowpod.com. Once again, that's info@emergencenowpod.com. Now, let's dive back to the show.
So going back to freedom, freedom without structure. How do you think about freedom now in your business? Like when you think about freedom, like you were just like before we were taping, you were talking about, being in Hawaii, right? It sounds like it's an annual trip. For as long as I've known you, there's a trip on the calendar to Hawaii every year or two. How do you switch off now? Like if you were to be able to go back to, year one and speak to Nikos, year one entrepreneur, first year, what would you tell him?
In terms of switching off?
Yeah. In terms of this freedom, this idea of freedom. Because what I'm saying is that you can't have freedom in the beginning. It's just not possible.
Right. Well,
does that,
I guess, drawing a finer point to what I said is that you almost have to broaden the aperture for what freedom means.
To you.
It's not exactly. So it's not, are you free or are you not? Like, you're working 100 hours a week? That's not freedom. But there's freedom unlocked exactly from what we had talked about with this example of love from the game, is that there is freedom. There is a sense of freedom in working 80 to 100 hours a week and doing what you love. So it would have started with do what you love first, which is interesting because now I'm like, I'm only going to do what I love. I'm only going to prioritize. I'm only going to start
by default.
That's right. And that's the freedom that I have. And remember, like back then, I wanted to make movies. I wanted to be a director. Now I'm taking my startup in a completely different direction, and the world is like opening up around AI, creative technology production, Midjourney, Flux, VO, and building a technology platform on top of that to basically reinvent Hollywood. And the world is opening up for AI producers and creators. And I'm just all of a sudden now smack dab in the middle of it because of the hybrid AI expertise plus the creativity. I showed you that Aoki trailer a little bit ago. And it's a passion project that's now turning into like a legit business. And so I'm like, I'm just going to only do the thing that I love. And I don't care how many hours I'm working a day, because that is my sense of freedom in being and embodying my craft as a technologist and an artist, right?
Okay. I think you just gave the mic drop moment of the show, and a paradigm shift to me, because that like hit me really, really hard. Like that, if you love what you do, you're already free. Like,
that's
it's so cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason.
That's right.
It's so true. I've been thinking about this recently in my mind. I feel like I'm retired because I just love what I do. It doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
Like I go around saying, I'm actually, when people ask me now, like tongue in cheek, like, what do you do? Like, that's usually the second. Actually, it's not even the second question. It's the first question that people ask now, right? Before they ask you your name, what do you do? What do you do?
Pretty
what
much.
do you do? And you know what? It's the most superficial, shallow question to start a conversation with, right?
It is.
As soon as I hear that question, I just want to mess with the person, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm like, I'm retired. Like, just retired.
Right.
What do you mean? I don't do anything. Like, and I say it because I love what I do. But okay, let's not everyone loves what they do. Some people get into entrepreneurship because they have their back against the wall. They have to create a paycheck, or they're at a job that they don't like, but they have to do, right? So how would they think about freedom in that case?
This is a good one because I've also thought about the exploration of freedom and entrepreneurship with respect to time constraints that you have. And in the age of AI and automation, obviously this is the best opportunity. And so for an entrepreneur that's seeking both, hey, I want the Tim Ferriss model. I want the 4-hour work week. That's achievable, but is it scalable? Maybe. And there's the right answer to doing that. And that's solopreneurship. Start a YouTube channel and like optimize to
Yes.
views. Get into Claude 3.7 and say, and have it automate your scripts all the way through and provide something of value. And the YouTube era is still upon us. Mr. Beast completely unlocked it. So there is a revenue model that kind of gets the best of both worlds. Is, if you want that sense of freedom and still do what you love, then solopreneurship may be for you. If you want to build the next tech unicorn, you could probably do it with under 10 employees, or sometimes even 5. I'm exploring those models too. Do it with AI agents. So this is to say that the level of unlock between time constraint, freedom, operational efficiency, and scale is here, and the tools are available to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that really resonates. There's so many opportunities now, right? For the solopreneur, without a doubt. Again, to push back even more, what if people don't even see the element of freedom, or maybe they have a different definition for freedom? Maybe freedom for them is, just not actually being able to work,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Uh, and that obviously then becomes a reward, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a reward for getting growth and profit in balance and
Totally.
building the right structure. So focusing on growth and profit then unlocks the freedom element if you don't already have it, or if your
Yeah.
definition of freedom is outside of what we've been talking about here.
I don't know. This one's an interesting one to me because everybody, and this makes me a little bit discerned at human nature, because most people, entrepreneurs are a different breed, but most people are inherently lazy. They want the quick buck. They want the pill to magically make them lose the 50 pounds without expending energy or any of that stuff. They'll want the shortcut. And a lot of people will turn to the easy way out, which is often cutting the line or even reverting to crime. And that's unfortunate because we live in a world, like we had mentioned, where all of these tools are available to you. But yeah, unfortunately, people don't have that ambition. They just want the revenue stream. They just want the profit, and they want the money to go straight into their bank account with as little work as possible. And then it becomes a different question. It's like, okay, well, you clearly don't want to become an entrepreneur. You want the idea of being an entrepreneur so that you could basically relish in the fruits of that labor without actually having to do the work. So be real with yourself and have a self-discovery lesson about what that entails, because all great things in life come with a sacrifice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. It's also a generational thing right now, right? I mean, everything is just instant. We've all seen, the memes and the videos and the reels about everything being. I mean, you were talking about a pill to lose 50 pounds. I mean, that pill exists. It's out there,
Ozempic.
right?
Yeah.
I just saw a stat of the number of people that are Ozempic right now.
Yeah.
Bananas.
Right.
Absolute
Definitely.
bananas. I mean, high teens.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, that could potentially be a wonder drug, though. But anyway, that's another episode. What's your secret to scaling?
I don't think it's any secret. It's for me, the superpower has
Yeah.
always been software. It's always been software is not just a way to automate. It's not just a way to use data meaningfully. It's essentially a way to reconceptualize reality in a way in which you understand the relationships with countless objects in this reality. and in a way where you could basically like get stuff done and also get stuff done in a more efficient way. So whether that's building the specific solution or to look at analytics to see where you can kind of squeeze things out, I've always leaned toward hybrid processes and systems to solve for a lot of inefficiencies within an organization, and then throwing some money and investment at it to make sure that it's doing the right job. So yeah, I'd say software has always been the key, but then it's software plus services, right? Because you're always dealing with like complexity. So it's people will always be like a strong component of it, but then I'll push it to the limit. Like now, what I'd like to do, and I wasn't the first person to say this, this was a CEO, I think it was at either Spotify or Airbnb, who said, before you put out the rec to do a new hire, I'd like you to take this to the limit and see if an AI could do it first. And that's kind of where I'm at is, can my AI do this particular job? And then only then will I hand this off to somebody to manage. But it basically tees up everything for you in a silver platter. So scale to me, again, it's energy expenditure to maximum output. And that is my measure, right? And so now this applies to solopreneurship. This applies to the 4-hour work week. And can you do that with the tools that are available to you, right? So that's always been the scaling factor.
Have you heard of, I didn't read this I didn't come across this. Someone told me about it. I really love the story. So, I've been sharing this for a number of years, but this conversation between Buffett, Gates, and Jordan, all three of them were having a conversation, and a reporter came up to them and said, you know what, you guys, the three of you have reached the pinnacle, like the zenith of your game, right? Business, philanthropy, basketball, sport, like you could not have done any better. What's the secret? And without hesitation, they all responded at the same time with the same answer. Focus. That's it. Like just being obsessively focused on the one thing.
Yeah.
As time goes on, that resonates with me more and more because of the amount of distraction that's around us, right? And and it's the shiny effect, right? Like, okay, you know what? Let me do that too. Let's do that. Let's like, this is what I'm seeing, like, on the front lines, like being in the front row seats of a lot of businesses. I'm seeing entrepreneurs get overwhelmed, and a big part of why they're overwhelmed is because it turns out like they're doing all these things, and 40% of the stuff that they're doing, right, was all legacy stuff. Right? Like they shouldn't, like no one knew why they were.
Hold on. Yeah. I feel that. I feel that, but it's almost like you're making the assumption that everybody, well, no, you're not making this assumption, but that suggests that somebody knows what their goal is, that somebody knows their specific objective, that they're already dialed into the specific outcome that they want, right? Focus only comes from, okay, I'm focusing on something. So only then can you say, all right, for Kobe, win the game night by night, doing everything, right? Feel the dead zones in the entire court. One objective, very clear, ball in the hole, score is greater than the ones of the opposing team. Very clear. I take sports analogies a little bit more loosely because it's like, okay, greatness is easily defined in sports. And we had the conversation with Jamie and we discussed this. This was all great stuff. But then for somebody that's kind of starting out in their career, it's like, I don't know what to focus on. I don't know what I want to be. Some days I want to be an influencer content creator. Other days I want to start my own shoe brand. Like, what do you say to the person that doesn't have like an objective? They're not focused. It's harder than ever to focus in this world. So what do you say to the rest of the world that doesn't have that specific objective or outcome in mind?
I mean, what do I say to them? I mean, it's, first off, if you're in that situation, right? If you're building a business, you need to know why you're doing what you're doing, right? Yeah. I mean, so I would say, zoom out, and, because focus only comes from knowing what you're really focused on. I completely agree with you, right? And this is the problem that no one wants to admit out loud, right? We keep we keep glorifying focus. I agree with you. Like we glorify it, but we have to skip over the fact that most people don't know what they want because they haven't really thought about it. They haven't sat down and asked themselves, what do I truly want? One. Number two, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, what's the purpose?
Yeah. What is my why?
What's
my why?
I mean, why? Yeah, absolutely. What's your why? What's the purpose? What's the purpose of starting a business? And most of the time, there are the purpose, the motivation, or I call the funding, comes externally. And I don't mean funding in terms of monetary. I mean like the motivation, the inspiration is external. And that always runs out. That dries up. Right? You may be super motivated today, but you may not have that motivation, or that access to that motivation may not be there tomorrow. Then what? And then we move on to the next thing. So really, like being able to, what I would say is tuning in to, the purpose, which has to come from within. It can't be because, I'm playing a status game. I'm all for status games. I think it's the oldest game that we've been playing, right? But if you're playing that game because, someone in your family, in your circle wants you to do that thing, or wants you to build that business or buy that house, like, the pursuit of that thing will dry up. The motivation to pursue that thing is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. And then most people would just say, I don't know how, but I just want to make money. I just want to be rich. It's like, well, okay, you got to do a little bit better than that. It's like, you got to find what you love.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think focus is, it's like a flashlight, but the direction is the hand that holds it. So yeah, Kobe, had a target, like you said, a score, a court, a hoop, but he could channel his chaos because the boundaries were defined, right?
Yeah.
But for most people, life looks more like an open field in the dark. And then we start feeling lost because we haven't actually gone through I'm going to say inner work. Like, and finding your why is really the inner work, right?
Right.
I mean, have you heard of Arthur Brooks?
No.
So he's basically, he's collaborating with Oprah. Oprah basically, highlighted one of his books, and he's the happy guy. He's basically a professor at Harvard, and he talks about, just doing what you love, because you need to be able to sustain that. Now, he's talking about something that most people need, right? That internal fulfillment. And that's something that, I learned much later. Like, for the longest time, I was playing that external game.
Great stuff.
All right. So let's bring it home, Nix. I don't want to bring it home, I have to be honest, because I've been really enjoying looking at your fade, but all good things must come to an end. So scaling is not a sprint. It's not a viral tweet. It's a systems game. You have to build the system. I think every entrepreneur has an operating system. And part of that operating system is something that we just discussed, which is your why. Why are you doing this? What's your purpose? There's that internal operating system. Then there's the operating system in your business, the systems, the process, all of the infrastructure that you need to scale a business. And of course, having that humility, right? As you grow, because when success comes, it's important to, I read recently, or I was watching an interview with Arnold, and someone said, you're a self-made man. And he's like, don't ever call me a self-made man. He said, there were so many people, hundreds and thousands of people that helped me along the way. Right.
Yeah.
And so part of that system is surrounding yourself with just really good people, right? Mm-hmm. Getting that alignment and having those conversations. Like, what do you want? We're going into business, but what do you want over the next 3 years? What's your purpose? Yeah. A lot of those conversations are not even really had.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And it's all the lessons along the way. So yeah, this was awesome.
If this episode hit different, we have a to-do for you. Please share it with a founder who's maybe stuck in chaos or is thinking about starting a business. Drop us a review. And if you want to explore growth operating systems and scale and entrepreneurship and AI, we'll see you at the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Emergence Now, where we explore the emerging trends, technologies, and ideas that are shaping our world today for you to discover yourself. We hope you enjoyed this episode and gained valuable insights that you can apply in your own life. If you want to stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media, where we share additional content, engage with our community, and keep the conversation going. Thanks again for listening to Emergence Now, and we hope you'll join us for the next episode.